It was a dark and stormy night when Ethan and Lila were driving home from a family visit. The rain came down like a waterfall and thunder rolled across the sky. Lightning flashed so bright that it almost blinded them. Suddenly, their car broke down in the middle of an empty road. The wind was howling and there was no signal on their phones. In the distance, Ethan saw a small house with a dim light inside. They decided to go there and ask for help. As they reached the gate, the old sign read Willow Road, no trespassing. The place looked abandoned, but the door was slightly open. They stepped inside, hoping to find someone. The air was cold and heavy. The house smelled of wetwood and dust. Lightning flashed through broken windows, showing old furniture and family portraits on the walls. But something was strange. In one of the pictures, the family members' faces looked burned. Thunder crashed again, and the door behind them slammed shut. Lila screamed. Ethan tried to open it, but it wouldn't move. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from upstairs. "Hello," Ethan called out, but there was no reply. Then came another flash of lightning, and they saw a shadow standing on the staircase. Each time the lightning flashed, the shadow moved closer. The sound of crying filled the air. Lila grabbed Ethan's hand tightly, terrified. The whispers grew louder, saying, "You shouldn't have come here." In one final blinding flash, they saw the faces of a man, woman, and two children, all pale, all staring at them. Then darkness swallowed everything. The next morning, police found the car still on the road, doors open, lights flashing. But Ethan and Lila were never found. Some locals say, during thunderstorms, if you drive near Willow Road, you can still see that old house glowing faintly and hear whispers calling your name. Mark Benson was a young man who loved danger. He was a popular storm chaser on social media. People followed his live videos because he always went into the heart of big thunderstorms to record lightning, wind, and tornadoes. He often said, "No storm can scare me." But one night, that changed forever. It was a violent storm warning in his town. Dark clouds covered the sky, and thunder shook the ground. Mark grabbed his camera, microphone, and car keys. He went live on his channel, smiling and saying, "Tonight, I'll show you the biggest thunderstorm of the year." Thousands of viewers joined his stream. Mark drove out to the open fields where lightning danced across the horizon. The rain was falling hard, but he didn't stop. Every few seconds, his camera caught bright flashes. Suddenly, in one of those flashes, viewers saw a tall, dark figure standing far behind Mark. The live chat exploded with messages. "Who's that behind you?" "Mark, someone's there." But Mark laughed. "That's just a tree," he said, jokingly. He turned the camera back toward the storm. Then, during the next lightning flash, the shadow was closer. It was not a tree. It was tall, human-like, but with no face. The wind grew stronger, and Mark's voice trembled. "Okay, guys, I think I'll head back." Suddenly, the shadow moved again, now standing just a few feet behind him. His camera shook as he turned around. A loud thunderclap filled the stream, and for 1 second, the screen showed the figure reaching toward him. Then the camera fell to the ground. The live stream went black. The next day, rescuers found Mark's car and his broken camera lying in the mud. But Mark was gone. Some say during lightning storms, you can still hear his voice whispering through static on the radio, trying to finish his last broadcast. It was a cold, rainy morning in the small mountain town of Ravens Hill. Thick clouds hung low and thunder echoed through the valley. A yellow school bus full of children began its usual trip to school, driven by Mr. Collins, a kind old driver everyone trusted. The storm was getting worse, but he didn't want the kids to miss their classes. The road twisted through the forest, dark and slippery from the rain. Lightning flashed again and again, and fog rolled in so thick that even the headlights couldn't cut through it. The children laughed and sang inside the bus, unaware of the danger waiting ahead. As the bus climbed the mountain road, a loud thunderclap shook the sky. Suddenly, a blinding lightning bolt struck a tree right beside the road. The children screamed as the tree crashed down behind them. Mr. Collins tried to radio for help, but the radio was full of static, just a whispering sound, almost like voices. Then something strange happened. The bus entered a patch of glowing fog. Everything outside turned white. The engine made a strange sound, and the headlights flickered. Mr. Collins pressed the brakes, but the bus didn't slow down. The children's voices faded, one by one. A few minutes later, a passing driver saw tire marks leading into the forest, but the bus was gone. Rescue teams searched for weeks. No sign of the bus, no pieces, no tracks, nothing. It had simply vanished. Years later, locals started telling stories. On stormy nights, when lightning flashes over the mountain, some drivers claim they see a ghostly yellow bus moving slowly through the fog, full of pale faces staring out of the windows. Some even hear the faint laughter of children and the sound of the bus horn echoing through the rain. They call it the Vanishing School Bus of Ravens Hill. And no one drives that road during thunderstorms anymore. In a quiet countryside village lived an old farmer named Mr. Harris. He was kind, hardworking, and known for his golden wheat fields that stretched far across the valley. One evening, dark clouds gathered above his farm. The radio warned of a powerful thunderstorm, but Mr. Harris didn't care. He worried more about his crops than his safety. "I must save the wheat before the storm destroys it," he said, putting on his raincoat and stepping outside. The wind blew wildly and thunder rumbled across the sky. His old dog, Rusty, barked loudly, trying to stop him, but Mr. Harris continued into the fields. Lightning began flashing all around, turning the night sky bright for a second and then dark again. The rain soaked the soil, and Mr. Harris could barely see through the storm. Suddenly, a strange blue lightning bolt struck the ground just a few feet away from him. The light was so strong that it made the whole field glow. When the light faded, Mr. Harris saw something impossible, figures rising from the soil, shaped like people but made of dust and rain. They whispered his name in low, echoing voices. Rusty howled and ran back toward the barn, terrified. Mr. Harris froze as the ghostly figures surrounded him. Their faces were pale and empty. One of them said softly, "You shouldn't have disturbed our rest." The wind howled louder, the lightning flashed again, and Mr. Harris screamed, but no one heard him over the storm. The next morning, villagers found the fields strangely quiet. The wheat was still standing tall, untouched by the storm. But Mr. Harris was gone. Only his hat and tools were found, lying near a deep circle of burnt soil, exactly where the blue lightning had struck. People now say that during heavy storms, if lightning hits near that field, you can still hear Mr. Harris's voice calling for help and see shadowy shapes moving among the wheat when the thunder roars. For friends, Ryan, Emily, Sophie, and Daniel decided to go camping near Silver Lake, a quiet and beautiful place surrounded by tall pine trees. They wanted a weekend away from the city. The sky was cloudy that evening, but they laughed it off and said, "A little rain won't hurt." They set up their small wooden cabin, started a fire, and roasted marshmallows. As night fell, thunder rolled across the lake, and lightning began flashing above the water. The wind grew stronger, and rain started to fall. The friends rushed inside, laughing, but the storm quickly turned violent. While they were talking, Emily looked out the window toward the lake. "Hey, do you guys see that?" she whispered. The others turned and saw a woman standing in the water, wearing a long white dress. Her hair was dark and wet, hanging over her face. Ryan opened the door to shout, "Hey, are you okay?" But as lightning flashed again, the woman was closer, now standing near the edge of the lake. Her eyes glowed faintly white in the dark. Sophie screamed, "Close the door." They locked it and backed away. Thunder crashed again, and suddenly there was a knock on the door, slow, heavy, and wet. Then silence. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and shined it toward the window. The woman's face appeared right there, pressed against the glass, pale, dripping with water and smiling. Lightning flashed, and the glass cracked. The lights went out. The cabin shook as wind howled around them. When morning came, the storm had passed. The police found the cabin door open, the fire cold, and muddy footprints leading back to the lake. Only Ryan was found, lying unconscious near the water, with burn marks shaped like lightning on his arms. He never spoke again. Locals say the Lady of Silver Lake appears during thunderstorms, calling campers by name, and if you answer her, you never return. It was late at night when Olivia Parker, a young nurse, was driving home from work. The sky was dark and rain was falling heavily. The sound of thunder echoed in the distance as flashes of lightning lit up the empty highway. She turned on the radio, but all she heard was static. The storm was getting worse every minute. As she drove through the rain, Olivia noticed something strange, a man standing on the side of the road. He was waving both hands, trying to stop her car. She slowed down and rolled down her window just a little. "Are you okay?" she shouted. The man didn't answer. A flash of lightning brightened the sky, and for one brief second, Olivia saw his face. He had no eyes, just dark empty holes where his eyes should have been. She screamed and hit the gas pedal, speeding away. Her heart pounded as thunder roared behind her. After a few miles, she stopped to calm down, breathing heavily. The rain kept falling, tapping against the car windows. Then she heard something, a knock on the back of her car. Tap, tap, tap. She froze. Another flash of lightning came, and she looked into her rearview mirror. For a moment, she saw the same man sitting in the back seat, his head tilted to the side. His mouth moved slowly as if whispering something, but she couldn't hear the words. Olivia screamed and jumped out of the car, running into the rain. When a passing truck driver found her minutes later, she was standing in the middle of the road, shaking and pointing toward her car. But when the driver looked, the car was empty, doors open, headlights still on, but no one inside. Days later, police found Olivia's car on the same road, still running, but she was gone. Locals say that during heavy storms, if you drive alone on that highway and see a man waving for help, don't stop, because some passengers never leave your car again. In a small town lived a curious 14-year-old boy named Noah Green. He loved collecting old things, clocks, typewriters, cameras, and especially radios. One day, while cleaning his grandfather's attic, he found a dusty, old wooden radio. It looked broken, but on the front was a small silver plate that read, "Property of WXR Radio, 1956. Noah carried it downstairs and plugged it in, but nothing happened. His grandfather smiled sadly and said, "That radio only works during thunderstorms. It's strange, your great-grandfather once said it can talk to the dead." Noah laughed, thinking it was just an old family story. That night, dark clouds gathered and a thunderstorm began. Lightning flashed through Noah's window and thunder shook the house. Suddenly, the old radio turned on by itself with a loud crackling sound. Noah froze. A deep, static-filled voice came through the speakers. "Help! Help us! We're trapped!" Noah's heart raced. "Who is this?" he asked. The voice replied, "We are inside the storm. Don't turn it off." Lightning flashed again, and the radio's dials started moving on their own. Noah's room filled with a cold wind, even though the window was closed. More voices joined in, men, women, even children, all whispering for help, crying, begging to be freed. Terrified, Noah unplugged the radio. But it kept playing, glowing faintly blue in the dark. Suddenly, a loud thunderclap shook the house, and sparks flew out of the radio. It burst into flames for just a second, and then turned to ashes. When Noah's grandfather rushed into the room, the radio was gone. Only a faint smell of smoke remained. Noah never spoke about that night again. But ever since then, Every time it rains, he hears static in his ears and faint voices whispering his name when thunder rolls. Some say that old radios from the 1950s still catch those same ghostly signals, the voices of people lost inside the storm. It was a stormy night in the small town of Hollow Creek. The wind howled through the trees, and rain poured like a river. Inside the town's cemetery, the old caretaker, Mr. Dale, was making his final round before heading home. He had worked there for 30 years and wasn't afraid of ghosts, at least, not until that night. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up rows of wet tombstones. Mr. Dale pulled his coat tighter and said to himself, "One last check, then I'll lock the gate." As he walked past the oldest graves, he noticed something strange, fresh footprints in the mud, even though no one else was there. He stopped and listened. The wind howled again, but beneath it, he heard something faint, like whispering. It sounded like dozens of voices speaking softly all at once. He turned around, shining his flashlight, but saw nothing except rain and mist. Then a huge bolt of lightning struck a tall oak tree near the far end of the cemetery. The ground shook and several tombstones cracked open. Mr. Dale dropped his flashlight in shock. From the corner of his eye, he saw shapes rising from the ground, pale, thin figures, glowing faintly in the stormlight. He stumbled back, whispering, "No, it can't be." The figures began to move toward him, their faces expressionless, their mouths whispering his name. "Dale! Dale!" Terrified, he ran toward the gate, but the wind pushed against him like invisible hands. Another lightning strike lit the sky, and for one terrifying second, he saw dozens of ghostly people standing among the graves, staring at him. The next morning, when the storm ended, the police found the gate open, Mr. Dale's flashlight still on, lying in the mud. But the caretaker himself had disappeared. Now, whenever thunder rumbles over Hollow Creek, people say they see lights moving in the cemetery and a faint voice calling, "Lock the gate," before they wake. In a small, peaceful town called Ravenbrook, people lived quiet lives until the storms began. It started with a single thunderstorm one summer night. A flash of lightning struck near the town square, and when the thunder followed, a man named Henry Cole vanished without a trace. No one saw him leave. His shoes were left standing in the street, still warm from his feet. A week later, another storm came. Another lightning strike, and another person disappeared. Soon, the town began to panic. Locals started saying that every time lightning flashed, the sky took a soul. They called it the curse of the last thunderclap. Among the frightened townspeople was Clara Evans, a young journalist. She didn't believe in curses and wanted to prove it was all just coincidence. On a stormy night, she set up her camera near the town's old church to record the lightning. The sky was dark and restless. Each flash of lightning made her heart race, but she kept recording. Suddenly, she noticed something strange on her camera screen, a tall, glowing figure standing behind her. She turned around quickly, but there was nothing there. Another flash came, and the figure was closer. Its face looked exactly like hers, smiling unnaturally. Clara's hands shook as she whispered, "Who are you?" The reflection on her camera replied in a soft, echoing voice, "You're next." Before she could run, a deafening thunderclap exploded in the sky. The camera fell to the ground, still recording. The screen went black. The next morning, people found her camera but not Clara. The last thing on the video was a bright flash and a faint sound of laughter mixed with thunder. Now, every storm in Ravenbrook ends with one final thunderclap that echoes longer than it should. Locals say that's the sound of the sky claiming another soul, and that Clara's reflection still appears in the lightning, smiling through the storm. If you enjoyed these true thunderstorm horror stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales every week. Your support helps us bring more real horror to life, so hit that bell icon and never face the darkness alone.